Hey everybody, my name's Ed. Okay, hey, got some Heinekens today. The grocery store where I normally buy Foster's is they don't sell Foster's anymore. I don't know why. I asked one of the girls at the checkout counter about it. And she really didn't know too much about it, but I was like shocked, because ever since I've lived in this neighborhood, they've always had Foster's at that particular grocery store. But now I guess I guess no more. Okay, so I'm going to do a late comic book review. These are comics that I've bought over the last 3 weeks or so, and I really hadn't had time to like read them as I was getting them, just because I've been so busy with like work and family stuff and stuff like that. But I've kind of caught up. Um, so in some comics, I actually really did want to have something interesting to say about. So I'm gonna do this kind of a late review. So just keep that in mind. A couple of things I might have to give mild spoilers to, just to get to the point that I want to get to. But um, but yeah, okay. So let's dig into it. Cheers. So I wanted to start with Nighthawk. Okay, there's going to be some mild spoilers about this just to explain how I feel about the comic. Okay, so it's written by David F. Walker, and the art is Ramon Villalobos. Just to explain the concept first, basically, Nighthawk is a character from Marvel's Max line. He is a character that was part of the excuse me, Supreme Power and Squadron Supreme series. In that series, the Max Line version of those characters were a little bit different than the version that you're used to seeing in like the Avengers and whatnot. Again, those characters were kind of parodies of DC and Justice League characters, but they were a darker, more twisted version. The idea behind that series was it was written by Michael J. Straczynski. He was taking a darker, more critical look at the whole idea of superheroes. So while it wasn't quite as done, he didn't quite go to the same list that Alan Moore did with The Watchmen. It was a similar sort of thing. He didn't quite completely deconstruct it as much as Moore did, but at the same time, the characters were kind of damaged, kind of had issues, So you were really supposed to read it and look at the characters kind of with a side eye. You really weren't supposed to accept their motivations and their reasoning for doing the things that they did. So what Marvel has now done is take this character from he was from that particular series and combine him with other characters, other different, you know, variations of those other Justice League characters and bring them to the mainstream 616 universe that Marvel's other characters live in, that Spider Man and Captain America and Thor and all those people live in. And the idea is this guy's a lot darker, he's a lot harsher, and he has a lot of, you know, ideas about being a vigilante superhero that's a little bit different than most mainstream superheroes are. Now, my well, here just to here I'll continue what I was saying. My problem is that's really a hard trick to pull off. To pull something from a title that's, like I said, not just darker, but actually kind of is a twisted version of the normal superhero version and bring it into the normal superhero universe. It's like it's the same reason why you really can't take the comedian from The Watchmen and put him in the Justice League comic and still have him be the hero. You can, but you have to ignore certain things that were crucial to the character to the point that the author was making with him in that other title. You have to ignore the fact that the comedian is a bully and a rapist and a sadist. You know what I mean? you have to ignore the fact that he shot a woman that was pregnant with his kid if you try to make him a hero in a conventional sense. And that's kind of the problem with Nighthawk. Nighthawk is kind of this dark pseudo Batman archetype, but he had this odd racial bias. It wasn't just that he was out to save black people. He kind of had a slight animosity towards white people at the same time. And like I said, to bring him from that series where the whole point of it is everybody in the series was a little bit twisted and a little bit not right, and then to bring him into like I said, the 616 universe, where we're used to taking things for granted that even if the characters were harsh or dark, they're most likely going to turn out and do the right thing. And that's kind of an issue with this, kind of my problem with this comic. I find the comic, well, just to I should probably explain the what's going on with the comic. So basically, the series is the premise is Nighthawk is living in Chicago, and he stumbles upon this white supremacist group that are running illegal drugs. Later on, we find out that they have some connection to this evil businessman, and at the same time, while Nighthawk's going around, catching bad guys and beating the shit out of them and killing them and stuff like that. There's also a serial killer who's out there killing corrupt judges and slumlords and things like that. And and while I think that's an interesting idea for the story, the problem with the comic is it's so over the top at the same time trying to deal with these very serious issues about crime and police brutality and gentrification and poverty and things like that. It doesn't quite it doesn't quite hit the standard that it seems to have set for itself. On one hand, it wants to take those things seriously, but at the same time, you have this kind of over the top character that's blowing people up and setting them on fire and stuff like that. So you get they open the door to the idea as well. How much different is this guy from the serial killer guy or anything like that? So that's kind of a it's kind of a problem. It's almost like for it to work better, the comic should have either been a lot smarter, about the issues and how society actually works and crime and things like that, or it should have just been cheesy and dumb, and they should have just made them, Black Punisher or something like that, and just have them, just blow people away, and they're one-dimensional bad guys, and they're all evil or whatever. Because it's stuck in this kind of middle ground, and it's interesting. I want to see how the story ends. Release this first arc, but it's not. It doesn't quite hit, like I said, it doesn't quite hit the points that I think it's looking for. So okay. Suicide Squad #1. I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was okay. It wasn't great, but it's okay. Um, okay. First thing is, I really don't like Jim Lee's redesign of Deathshot's armor. I just think it's hideous. It's terrible. I don't know. I don't know what happened to Jim Lee where he thinks everybody needs to be wearing bulky, unattractive looking armor these days. But it's I'm not feeling it. You know what I mean? Basically, not a whole lot happens. I should probably explain. It's a split issue, or I guess you could. It's a split issue. We get the main story with the Suicide Squad, and that one is drawn by Jim Lee. And then we get a backup story with Deadshot, and that's drawn by Jason Fabuk, and both of them are written by Rob Williams. Yeah. Um, it's okay. It's not terrible. It's not great. It's just kind of in the middle there. Basically, we get the setup for a mission. They have to sneak into a Russian satellite company or country and retrieve some cosmic artifact. And on the way down, their vehicle crashes, and that's where it's left. And then we get the backup story, which has a eh, it's an okay story with Deadshot and Batman and Deadshot's daughter. It's fine. The main story is about 10 or 12 pages, and then the backup story fills out the rest. I guess maybe this is how they're going to deal with the fact that Jim Lee is, not known for a guy who can always stick to schedule. So we'll see how long this lasts. I wouldn't be shocked though if after the first arc or so, Jason Fabouk maybe takes over or whatever. I just wanted to show you this. The whole thing is redeemed by Ramon's reference. So there. Aha. Okay. Power Man Iron Fist number 7. Scarlet Witch number 9. And Spider Woman number 10. Okay, so Power Man, Iron Man, Power Man, Iron Fist. Sorry, written of course by David Walker, and the art in this issue are by Stanford Green and somebody named Flaviano. And there's a two-part, or I should say, there's two-part, but in this story, Iron Fist is in jail, and then um, Luke Cage is outside trying to figure out what he should do about it. And the scenes that have Luke Cage in it are drawn by Flaviano, and the jail scenes with Iron Man with Iron Fist are done by Stanford Green. I've been mostly enjoying the comic. It's really fun. It's really lighthearted, really breezy. I like how the comic's full of a lot of kind of forgotten 70s and 80s characters that we've seen in either, the old Power Man and Iron Fist series, other street level characters and stuff like that. There's a cameo of a couple of characters that used to be Sons of the Tiger here. Of course, some of Luke Cage's old enemies show up. Basically, what the plot is there's some group going around attacking former supervillains, and some of these supervillains are actually are guys who were like two-bit losers who have like reformed and haven't actually committed any crimes or anything in a while, but they're still being attacked and jailed and things like that. And Power Man and Iron Fist get involved, and through some confusion, Danny actually gets arrested and he's sent to jail. And we find out that for some reason he's wanted, even though he shouldn't be. And then the same thing with Luke. Luke had his record expunged, years ago, but he's listed as a wanted felon or whatever. So, like I said, we have this interesting thing where Danny's in jail, and people are telling him like, "Hey, you got money, get yourself a lawyer. You can make bail and get out." And he's like, "Well, no, I can't really do that. I got to see this thing through." And it's the same thing with Luke. People like, "There's nothing you can do. You can't just go in there and break him out or whatever." But it's like, I can't leave my best friend in jail or whatever. And yeah, it's an interesting issue. I think the art is kind of whatever. I do like Stanford Green's style, but sorry, sometimes when he's in rush mode, um, his art gets inconsistent. And the same thing with Flaviano, or not that it's necessarily the same thing. I just haven't quite warmed up to the Flaviano art. But the art is really, but the story is really good. It's really tight. It's funny where it's supposed to be funny. And yeah, it's decent writing. I actually really like it. It's pretty funny, or it's interesting to me that the guy that wrote this is the same guy that wrote the Nighthawk series, which is not as good as it's trying to be. But I already talked about that, so okay. Scarlet Witch number 9, Civil War tie-in. I'll be really glad when Civil War is over. But I actually like this issue. It's basically a heart-to-heart talk. Well, I should say it's written by James Robinson and the artist by Jolie Jones, which I really enjoy. It's basically a heart-to-heart with Wanda and her brother Pietro, who's Quicksilver. Basically, he comes to find her and says, "Yes, there's this big event, and we need to get involved." And Wanda's like, kind of, "Well, here's how I feel about the debate, but you know what? I'm not getting involved. You know, what are we gonna do? We're gonna have another hero versus hero fist fight and whatever. And basically kind of go back and forth about their history and their relationship to each other and things like that. It's actually pretty well written. I actually believed it as much as they talk a lot about how do I want to put this, how the characters have actually been handled in real life comics and things like that. How Pietro's been arrogant, he's been a jerk, and all these things, and the whole thing with Wanda when she first started out, she was a lot more weak, a lot more submissive. Then she goes through her things, and then they've both been declared crazy or insane by various different writers and stories over the years and stuff like that. And I think James Robinson actually does a good job of acknowledging all those sort of things, those events and changes the characters have been through, and making it seem, plausible and actually pulling it off. So I thought this was a pretty solid issue. Um, Wonder Woman, Spider Woman number 10, written by Dennis Hopeless, and the artist by the layouts are Javier Rodriguez, and the finishes are Veronica Fish. Uh, yeah, another another Civil War tie-in, and like I said, I'll be glad when this event is over. Basically, the premise of the Civil War event is there's an Inhuman guy who can read the future. So the split in the superhero community is whether or not we should be using this guy to predict events and stopping them and catching people before they do bad things and so on and so forth. So that's what it's about. Basically, this is more lighthearted look at some of the things that are going on. Spider Woman basically takes this kid around to see how accurate his predictions are, and they're just kind of more goofy, lighthearted things. Um, so it keeps with the tone of this series. So yeah, it's a positive for me, even though, like I said, I'm a little bit tired of the whole event and whatnot. All right, Snot Girl number 2 by Brian O'Malley and Leslie Hung. Um, I'm gonna drop it. It's not a bad comic or anything like that. I like the art, and it's a little bit funny, but it's just not for me. It's just very a lot of navel gazing over nothing particularly interesting. It just really doesn't grab me. I'm sure there's an audience for this comic, but yeah, it's just not me. Scarlet number 9 by Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev. Not bad. This comic has been played by terrible, terrible delays, and really, like I said, it's not bad, but I just kind of wanted to be over at this point. Okay, new Superman number 2 and Batgirl and the Birds of Prey number 1. I kind of liked them both in similar ways. I'll probably give them both a couple more issues to decide if I want to keep reading them. I probably like. Well, let's look at this. Uh, New Superman number 2 is by um, uh, Gene Young Wang as the writer, and Victor Bogdanovic does the pencils, and Richard Friend does the ink. This one might be a little bit more well written with slightly less plot, but I think it's funny, it's light, it's breezy. I think there's some really interesting things going on with Chinese culture and things like that. Basically, new Superman is kind of this teenage jerk that the government gives superpowers to be part of their superhero program. They also have a Chinese Batman there and Chinese Wonder Woman, and it's basically so far this guy kind of learning how to use his powers and things like that. And there's also stuff in there with his relationship with his dad that might not be the greatest or whatever. But like I said, it's kind of funny, light, breezy. It's really entertaining. I don't know how I feel about the art. I think the art is just okay. It's I don't know. To me, it's kind of shaky in a few parts, So, there's that. Like I said, I have similar feelings about Batgirl and the girls and the Birds of Prey. The writing is by Julie Benson and Shauna Benson, and the art is by Clara Rowe. Here, I like the art a little bit better than I like the writing, but just only because I don't think the writing's bad. I just feel it's kind of it's kind of average, I guess. It's nothing you haven't seen before. There, that's what I want to see. It's pretty standard stuff. Basically, it's Batgirl has gotten the band back together. The band being the Birds of Prey back together with Black Canary and Huntress here. This is the more modern Huntress. This is Helena Bertinelli, who is um, uh, formerly of Spiral, the spy group that Dick Grayson was a part of for a moment. And they're basically trying to track down some guy or some person, I should say, who has uh, called themselves Oracle and is giving information to the underworld or whatever. So Batgirl wants to find out who that is. Helena Bertinelli gets involved because she thinks one of the people who's involved is also responsible for killing her family or something like that. So yeah, I think I like the art a little bit better here than I like it in New Superman. But I also think the new Superman art writing is slightly better than we get here. But again, it's fun, it's entertaining, doesn't blow me away. But like I said, I'm willing to give it a chance, at least a couple more issues before I decide, whether or not I want to keep reading it. Okay, I think I'm probably going to stop this video here, and I'll do a second part so it doesn't go, so it doesn't go on too long. Okay, so I'm gonna stop here, and I'll catch you in the next video.